All right, number 9. What is not a pivot? Changing your idea in a fundamental way that also makes it better. A change in strategy without a change in vision. Or a change in strategy based on feedback from the market.
Okay, so it's I guess surprising, but also not surprising that so many people got this one wrong about pivoting, which is kind of a very simple thing. But right away, the textbook definition of a pivot is a change in strategy without a change in vision. I think a lot of people forget that it is not changing your vision, it's just changing your strategy. So we can knock that one off right away. And we have to decide between these two as to which one is not correct. So changing your idea in a fundamental way that makes it better, or changing your strategy based on feedback from the market. Now, the key thing about a pivot is that it's not just any change in what you're doing. It's really a change after you've run an experiment to figure out that what you're doing now is not going to get you to where you want to go. It's not going to be viable. It's not trending towards that way. So changing based on feedback is a definition of a pivot. Just changing in a fundamental way, even if it makes it better, is not a pivot.
All right. Number 10. What is the first iteration of an idea referred to as? Is the first iteration called iteration 1, baseline, or the minimum viable product?
Great. So this is, I guess, a tough one too, but the trick here is that the minimum viable product is not just the first iteration. In fact, a minimum viable product is an experiment. So everything you do in a startup is an experiment, making every iteration the next minimum viable product that you're building. So the minimum viable product is not the right answer. And so we're left with iteration 1 and baseline. And if it was just iteration 1, there'd be no point in this question. The baseline here, the baseline is the first iteration. It's basically the reason that you're doing an experiment is to set a baseline for all the metrics. So our first landing page, we're trying to figure out what is the baseline conversion rate. And we're going to decide based off of setting a baseline, each new experiment we do should get us better and better metrics above the baseline. The baseline is the starting point. That's why it's the first iteration. And when it's hard to improve on the baseline, we know that it's time to pivot. And so that's why the first iteration is the baseline.
Great. Now, how does Google calculate monthly search volume? Is it based on historical average of searches for specific keywords based on broad match, historical average of searches for specific keywords based on exact match, or future prediction of searches for specific keywords based on broad match?
Yep. So it's not a future prediction. It's based off of some historical average. And we talked about broad match and exact match before. Broad match is that if I search for lean startup, if I'm targeting the keywords lean startup based on broad match, then I'm going to get a number for basically any way that people use the words lean and startup. So it could be, as I said before, how do I build a startup while maintaining a lean body? That would be broad match. That would show up in that data. Whereas exact match is only if they use the word lean and startup in that order together in the search. And so search volume is based on the exact match, not the broad match. Impressions estimate that Google gives you in its keyword tool is based on broad match.
Great. Now we have, which of the following is not a good way to find keywords? Ask early adopters what search terms they use to find your product. Use one of the many keyword tools to help you find non-competitive keywords, or look at search results for specific keywords to gauge if they are a good fit.
Okay. So the question is, which is not a good way to find keywords? Now, Grace, among these three, which one seems to you like the best way to find good keywords?
The first one. In order to find good keywords, you could start off by interviewing your early adopters and asking how they searched for the solution.
If someone's your target customer, you say, hey, you searched for this on Google, what did you actually search for? That's a great way to find keywords because that's based on data of what people are doing. Now, the last two answers, we got to figure out which one's wrong. It's using keywords tool to find non-competitive keywords, or doing the search yourself, looking at the search results for that keyword to see if the results you're getting are a good fit. Now, what that means is that Google is a search engine finely tuned to give people the results they need. So by just typing in the keywords, you're going to be able to see what Google thinks those people are looking for. And the trick with the first one is that we said non-competitive keywords. Okay, so you're not trying to find non-competitive keywords when you're picking your keywords, because competition could be a good thing, right? If there's a bunch of shoe stores inside the mall, the best way to have a successful business might be to put my store right next to theirs, right? It all depends on where is their unmet demand, right? So a keyword can be competitive, but there may be even more demand for the product there. And usually the fact that there is competition, that people are paying for keywords, means that they're making money from it, right? Why else would they be paying that money for it? So you're not looking for non-competitive keywords, and that is the wrong answer.
Well, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on finding non-competitive, cheaper keywords to target instead of paying, let's say, $5 for a competitive keyword?
Yeah, it's not about the amount that you pay for a keyword. It's about how much money can you make in profit. So if your product is $50 and you have to pay $25 for a keyword, but those customers convert at 100%, that might be, a much better opportunity than, paying half as much, but having them convert at 1%. So it's all about customer acquisition costs, not about the cost that you're paying for a keyword. Does it make sense?
Great. All right, number 13, true or false? Number 13, true or false? It is okay to tell someone before an interview you're working on a startup idea. True, you need to tell them this. False, this will bias them.
This is one of the most commonly answered wrong questions, Grace. How do you feel about that?
Well, just to clarify it once and for all, it should be false. This will bias them. You don't want to tell them that you are working on an idea, because they're your friends. They want to be nice, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's so awesome! Yeah, I love it." And you're not going to get the right answers out of it.
I've actually seen this in our events, in live interviews, where people open a conversation called, "Hey, I'm working on a startup idea," and you can just tell people are so excited to talk to them about a startup idea because of how cool startups are. It has nothing to do with whether or not there's a real problem there. So by telling them you're working on a startup idea, you're going to bias them in a big way. It's a no-no.